Welcome to Women in Leadership Talk, where you'll hear from successful women who are empowering other women with their stories of adversity, resiliency, and success. And here is your host, Vicki Bradley, founder and CEO of Women in Leadership Empowered.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Thank you for chiming in today and listening to this amazing guest I have joining me. I have Cathy Eads here from Atlanta, Georgia. Cathy, thank you for being here with us.
Thanks for having me, Vicki. I'm really pleased to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. And, this episode will be kicking off in January. So I think it's perfect timing for our audience to, really step into some of that resilience and calm. And I love what you had shared when we first came on, and you said you've kind of entered the new year a little bit more relaxed and calm. And I think, that's a really important way to look at the year of the horse and, how we're going to navigate all the beautiful things that are going to happen in this new year.
Yes. I'm actually glad you brought up Year of the Horse too, because I think that fits in so nicely with the idea of relaxing into your power. It's a beautiful concept for how to really be emboldened, but also in a very calm and easeful, powerful way.
Love it. Love it. Well, let me give our audience a little bit of background on you, and then we're going to jump right into that conversation because I think there's a lot of things for us to talk about today. Always the new year is so important to set yourself up properly. And so that was why I thought you'd be the perfect guest to join us in the January series. So Cathy is a yoga therapist. She specializes in stress relief, nervous system, and authentic, sustainable self-care for high-achieving women. Perfect for our audience.
Great.
Her expertise isn't just professional, it's personal. After decades of performing, perfecting, and pleasing her way through life and career, she hit a painful breaking point that forced her to reevaluate everything she believed about worthiness and well-being. Now, how familiar does that sound to our audience? I know many of you are sitting here listening to this, or you might be walking the dog listening and you're going, oh yeah, that sounds familiar. So she does this through therapeutic movement, guided breath work, and intentional rest. She now helps women redefine self-care, release chronic stress patterns, and develop what she calls the unshakable calm. So Cathy, welcome officially to the show. And thanks so much for taking time to be with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much. I am really, really happy to be here to share with your audience.
Awesome. Well, one of the things when I read your profile and was learning a little bit about you, one of the things that really hit me was this performing, perfecting, and pleasing. And so many of us, especially women, we are so guilty of that. So I'd love to hear from you, like, what did that moment teach you about high achieving women, the mistakes of stress for strength? And I mean, I lived in chronic stress forever. So I just love to hear your story and where that breaking point actually came in.
Yeah. I mean, I think for so many of us, I think it seems like there's a breaking point, but it's almost like it comes along, like we continue to live in these kind of unhealthy patterns until they suddenly are so heavy, or our body screams at us through a health issue, like, you can't do this to me anymore. Or maybe it's a relationship, something happens and it's almost like this realization of, oh, I kind of knew I probably wasn't doing the most healthy thing, but now I really know it. Mm-hmm. And I gotta take inventory. I gotta look at this. But I think I don't want people to ever feel like a fault in all of this. A lot of this is culturally learned from a very young age for female people. And I'm going with stereotypical because there's a reason for stereotypes. It really covers a large number of the female population, that we learned to be good girls. I often joke, like, I just was the kid in school who was like, teacher, tell me how to get the A, because I can go down your list and I'll do the things. And we also were taught that oftentimes girls were quieter, they were more subdued, they weren't as boisterous, and we also probably saw females who were behaving outside of those ways who suffered for it
Yeah.
in any number of ways. So rather than beat yourself up because you've got these patterns, like recognize that there's some recognition that comes and then some unlearning, and they're learned patterns. So you can reprogram and relearn new patterns. And I think just that is actually pretty empowering for women to be like, oh, okay, so this is somebody else's stuff that I've kind of taken on because it served you well. Like it served you well to be the kid who was like, tell me how to get the A, or pay attention to like what behaviors are rewarded.
Yeah.
And then when you, especially if you come into leadership, then you have to come into powerful position and know how to navigate that, when before that was like it was follow the direction of other people. And so it's the self-awareness piece first, and then the recognition of, oh, I can learn a different way, and I can listen to my body and mind and emotions when they tell me, no, this isn't good for us. So, for me, my personal story, like, we can get into that if you want to, but it was,
Yeah, I would love to hear it.
yeah. So I'm the oldest of 4 children. Often the oldest is a pleaser too. I grew up in in a Catholic church. I was involved there. And there's a lot that comes with some religious backgrounds too, of follow the rules, follow the rules because that's what the good people do. And so there's all of that. And then also I got married right out of college to my high school sweetheart. We raised 3 kids. But in that, I can see this now, but in that pattern with that marriage, I followed what I saw my mother do, which was to give, 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 and over function. And so I thought, oh, that's how you show people you love them. You do for everyone else. And I didn't realize how much that causes you to self-abandon and to ignore and push through your own needs, your own, when you start to feel bad, you still push through. I mean, women do this a lot.
Yeah, we do.
But, we get
All the
sick
time.
and we maybe give ourselves a couple days if we're not flat on our backs or something. Maybe we don't even do that, especially if you've got young kids. Like you're working at taking care of everybody where you're still not well. So eventually, when I was 51, ended this very unhealthy marriage. Like it had been unhealthy, and then it slowly was getting much worse. And I was like, this is not what I would want my child to be involved in. This is not healthy. This is not good for me. And I was starting to have health issues too. It was a contentious divorce, surprise. The little tidbit I can share is that my ex-husband sent me a spreadsheet with a division of assets. Now, mind, we'd been married over 25 years, with himself getting 70% of all the assets.
So good of him.
So this gives you some context for that relationship. But I will say that also was a big part of my personal growth, was to be not afraid to be alone and to stand in my truth, my power, knowing I am going to be okay because I have raised 3 kids a lot of that time by myself. I can make a living. I can take care of me. Like I've taken care of other people for a really long time. I can take care of myself, surely. But that also, even though I'd been a student of yoga for many years, that's when I went to a teacher training because I, for whatever reason, felt like at the time was right. And realized, wait, this whole thing that I thought was just exercise is like, this is a way of living that's really healthy, that's really compassionate to myself and to other people, and is so focused on holistic health, not just physical wellness, but your mental and emotional well-being and how you interact with other people. And so I dove deep. I went in and did that training with 200-hour. I did an Ayurvedic wellness counselor because Ayurveda and yoga are like sister sciences. And then I also went back and did another 300 yoga therapy, 300. So that led me to just being much more in charge of myself, I guess is a way to put it. And this idea of this unshakable calm that's the best words that I've found to describe it. That I can recognize whatever's going on outside me is not about me. And I control what's in here, thoughts, emotions, my own well-being, my actions. That's
Yes.
how I respond to that. And that idea of being able to thoughtfully respond instead of react. I spent decades reacting, like take it, just
We all do.
yeah.
I mean, I think that's so normal that because I'll go back to what you said originally. We are in a society where we have learned behaviors, which is all reactionary. And unless you slow it down enough to respond, you just get caught on the hamster wheel, right? It's just this go, 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 go of react, react, react.
And you can stay there.
You can if you want.
Yeah, you can. I mean, I think this is one of the reasons that I think the statistic is like 85% of autoimmune diagnoses are in women.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the contributing factors.
Of course, I'm there, guilty.
Over-functioning to our own depletion so that our bodies can't take care of themselves. And we just stockpile the stress hormones because we're never allowing like a release of them. And also it's Gabor Mate, if you're familiar with him.
Gabor Mate, yes.
Saw an
And the
interview
body
with
says
him.
no.
Yeah.
It's amazing. He's amazing. I would say he studies the human body.
Yes.
And he connects how all of these things manifest.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point earlier, you can rewire. You don't have to stay in that space if you choose not to.
Exactly.
Not that it's easy. It's not. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of recognition to the response mechanisms versus the reaction. So yeah, I'm glad you brought him up. Like he does amazing work.
He does amazing work. I know in that interview, he brought up the statistic. And then he also was talking about the fact that women tend to absorb the emotions, the pain of the people around them, like their closest family members too, even the stress of
course,
a partner, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, he's a good guy to go listen to.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So Cathy, I want to go back to, just for a second, I want to just invite our audience to take a moment and just think about, how are you performing? How are you perfecting? How are you pleasing? Like, we're in the new year and it's a great opportunity to take some time and just, spend some time with yourself and think about, how is that showing up for you? Is it family? Is it career? Is it all aspects of your life? And where do we give to ourselves? Right? We're busy giving to everybody else. So I wanted to take a moment and just, remind everybody that when you're listening to a podcast like this, it really is about how do you take nuggets from this and have that impact on your life. And because so many of our leaders on here listening, they lead teams, companies, families, there's always this, go mode, or they're on edge. And so I'd love to hear from a nervous system perspective, what happens when we're in that chronic overdrive?
When I mentioned the stress hormones that they're naturally there for the body to act in times of danger. And what the brain doesn't differentiate a saber-toothed tiger, a near miss collision in a car, or somebody really laying into you at work. Like it's all danger to your brain. And so we need to allow a release of these chemicals, because ages ago, when you had to run away, that's how the body naturally releases that stuff. The chemicals come, it helps your heart beat. It takes all of that energy to like get you moving, to be safe. But we live in modern times where we're not going to go run if somebody yells at us,
Probably wouldn't go over so well.
It probably wouldn't. It might look bad. It might not end well. But we do need to allow ourselves the release, even if it is a short walk up and down the stairway. That is a physical movement. The physical movement helps to release these chemicals so they don't build up. And we often are not giving ourselves just a gentle movement each day, like just a 10-minute walk outside, especially if you're not doing anything right now. Take a 10-minute walk every day when you get home from work. Just 10-minute walk, no phone, or maybe your phone's in your pocket, but you're not listening. Like you are just being present for 10 minutes, because that takes that nervous system that's in overdrive all the time and allows it to come back down to a baseline, because that's what ends up happening with your nervous system is it's up here all the time. and it starts to wreak havoc on your organs and your bodily systems because they're not meant to be up here all the time. They're meant to be up here and then come back down.
Yeah, very true. Very true. So let's talk about this method that you teach, the Unshakable Calm. So I'm curious, how is that different from just being good at, as women especially, we just push through things, we make it happen. We see that, okay, this has got to be done. So just get it done. So what is it that you're teaching them to, really, really have that unshakable?
So it is not a quick fix. I mean, this is something you are, as you said, you want it to be sustainable, and we want to have habits and routines throughout our life that support this general foundation for our well-being and allows us to enter that unshakable calm. And like, it's in there all the time. That's what some people, I think, don't realize. And I didn't really get it, that like the peace and the calm that I wanted was actually in here. I just had to get back to it. So with the movement, we're so focused on, how does your thigh feel in this position? Like, I cue people through the movement. Whenever you expand your limbs away from the body, you inhale. And whenever you're bringing the limbs back in, you exhale. So you're pairing movement with the breath. And then also you're bringing your attention inward. What am I doing? How does this feel? What's that sensation? All of the stuff that's the noise out there coming at you all the time, is the goal is we're bringing our attention away from that, bringing it back to ourselves. So we move through a series of therapeutic movement, and I work one-on-one with people individually so that I can dial it in to like, what's going on with you and your body and your life that's unique to you. And then we may add some additional breath work, because breath work is really good for regulating the nervous system and bringing that parasympathetic nervous system back into the rest and digest state. And then we'll do what is technically called a yoga nidra. Some people refer to it as non-sleep deep rest, but it is a guided relaxation. You're lying flat on your back, and I guide you through where to bring your attention within your body and allow an actual release, and then be in stillness for a little bit, which honestly, for a lot of people, is really hard.
I was just going to say that. Like, how often do your clients say, I don't know how to like shut my brain down for it, because I can't focus on that body part because my brain's thinking of the, 50 things I have to do at work, with my kids, with my partner, blah, 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 blah. So how do you help them move past that?
Yeah.
Because you said earlier, it's not easy, but it is a new habit.
Yes. So it's not always easy, but it is simple. It is simple. And with anything you're doing, you practice it. And that's why people talk about yoga practice. Every day is different. Some days you're going to be very agitated and have a really hard time focusing on what we're doing. But that's one reason why when I guide you, I try to be very purposeful and guide you auditorially through each movement. And I ask you questions so you can then answer. So you can occupy your mind by listening to my cues. And that way I'll guide you. Now, does our brains, like, that's their job, is to have thoughts. Do they run away? Yes. And then you just, all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, I'm thinking about Tommy's baseball practice. What did she just say? My big toe?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So it's just a matter of practice. It does get easier with practice over time. And that is one reason why I love the yoga nidra so much, because it isn't asking you to lie still in silence for 10 minutes or sit in meditation for 5 minutes. It's asking you to lie still and listen and just guide your attention to the places and to the sensations you feel in each of those places in the body. So it helps to occupy our monkey mind. So it does have a job to do during that time without just being left to its own devices.
Okay. So a very focused, intentional job. Okay. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I find like that's one of the hardest things even for myself. Right. And I remember years ago, my naturopath and I were talking about meditation. And I said, Dr. Eric, I have such a hard time, like, just clearing my mind. And he goes, well, Vicki, it's not always about clearing your mind. It's the intentional. And that was a very, very big different perspective for me, because I had always thought it was about clearing, and it's just getting focus so you can get that clarity, and being very intentional with where your thoughts might go to.
Yeah. And that is I'm really glad you brought that up. That is a very common misconception about meditation to begin with. And I always encourage people when they're starting a meditation practice, do guided first, because, and do it for a short amount of time. Don't be like 20 minutes of, please, that's just torture for yourself. Yeah. Start with guided, because it does help to occupy the natural thoughts that race around. And each time your thoughts wander, which it is, I don't know anybody who meditates, even someone who's been meditating for years. I don't personally know the Dalai Lama, but I don't know anybody else that meditates whose thoughts do not trail off.
Yeah.
And then when you realize it, you're just like, come back to, that's an inhale, that's an exhale. Even if that helps to keep you just bring the thoughts back to right now and say, oh yeah, I'll take care of that later. Right now I'm sitting here and I'm breathing in and I'm breathing out.
Nice. Love that. Love that. So, we have a lot of high performing individuals. Normally I would say women, but we do have more men listening to the show.
Great.
I want us to think about, they're high performing, their nervous system is usually in high distress, even when the outside looks perfectly calm, in a good place. Like, what are some of those subtle signs that can help us to connect with what is really going on? And that goes back to your awareness comment earlier in the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you have male listeners. Like, I really am thrilled to hear that, because I do feel like this applies to men and women, both. We all have these physiological responses to stressors. And actually, one of my male clients was a guy who is like, I cannot sit still. Like, I have to have a plan and a thing to do. And I'm like, we'll work on that. We can work on that. So that feels comfortable to relax. Sorry, I lost your question.
So I was just asking what some of the subtle signs might be that,
Yes.
to help people become more in tune with when that nervous system is in high distress or out of alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. So I often encourage people to do vagal toning exercises. So the vagus nerve is actually a whole system of nerves, but there are two large spots on the sides of the neck where they kind of begin. And then that system of nerves goes to all of our major organs. So it responds, it's one of the first responders to stress. And the idea of, it says, oh, wait, now we're in danger. We have to shut down some of those rest and digest systems and go into, let's circulate the blood more. Let's get more oxygen to the muscles, all of that kind of stuff. And, kudos to the people who can totally not show any of that externally, but also there's still stuff going on inside your body with those systems. So we want to be able to tone the vagus nerve, and the Yoga Nidra does that. There are other short little exercises you can do, but breath, using your breath in a situation, even if you're like in a tense negotiation or something like that, inhaling to the count of 4, exhaling to the count of 6. Pretty much nobody's even going to know you're doing that, except you might take a pause. And I've found in negotiations, just taking a pause is actually
very
kind of
powerful.
a power move. Yeah. If you want to deepen that a little more, take that inhale to 6 and exhale to 8. Extending the exhale cues your parasympathetic nervous system that, hey, I am safe. I am in control of myself right now. We're good. I've got this. So that simple breathing technique, I gave it a name, the 60-second stress slayer, which is actually a lot of S's to say all at once, but it really helps to take the nervous system down, whether you're showing any distress externally or not. It gets the nervous system under, not control, but it says, hey, you can relax.
Yeah.
Like it is okay.
You're okay. You're not in danger. Yeah. No, I love that one. I use that one a lot for myself, but also just as a sidebar, like my mom will often, when I have to take her to the doctor, she has this white coat hypertension. And as soon as they start to do her blood pressure, she goes into overdrive. And it's a learned behavior. Like, she's always done it. But I started doing that breath exercise with her probably 2 years ago. And on the drive, I start saying to her, okay, mom, I just need you to breathe in for 4, out for 7. I do 7. And, and I have her do that. And it is fascinating, Cathy, because when she does it, her blood pressure shows up normal. When she doesn't do it, like the nurses are like ready to take her to emerge because her blood pressure goes off the charts. I'm validating what you're saying. Like it does work when you just take that moment to reset. And that's so important. And, the other thing I think is that I hear this a lot from my clients where they'll say, Vicki, I just don't have time for self-care. Right. And we know that is true in so many cases, but that's what we're telling ourselves here. How do we help women in particular start to recognize that it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go do a spa day, right? There's little practices that you can do that is giving you that self-care that your body, your mind, your being is screaming for.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I do want to step back to one thing you asked that I didn't quite get to. You asked, what are some of the signs?
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Digestive issues of any kind are often the very first sign. And that is, it can show up as constipation, bloating, flatulence. Anything digestive, acidity, reflux, all of those things. It's going to show up differently in different people. Also, sleep disturbances are another thing. So these kinds of, which we kind of sometimes try to Band-Aid with a antacid, or, we Band-Aid these things. That's your body saying, like, I need some support. So I wanted to make sure and cover that because that kind of stuff, headaches, even just like aches and pains in the body where these chemicals build up and they cause physical tension over time. Those are all signs of, hey, pay more attention to taking care of yourself. And some of those simple self-care things you can do, I mentioned the daily walk. Like, it's free, it's simple. You might see a neighbor, you might see a beautiful flower. Like, nature is really, really healing. So if you can get into any kind of green space, even if it's just your neighborhood, take a walk. That's great. Fresh air, sunshine. You're getting so much. And I know it's a very simple thing to do, but it has incredible impact.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Another thing you could do is have a cup of warm water every morning when you wake up, before you have coffee, before you have anything else. Warm water helps to let your digestive system know, oh, it's time for us to kind of warm up and get going.
Okay.
And
nice.
So if you're having digestive issues, that can be really helpful. The yoga nidra, like I do one myself in the afternoon. It's a really great transition between work and home. It can be, again, 5-10 minutes. I have one in the resources that I'm going to send you, but also an incredible app that I have a few recordings there, but there are so many from so many different people, is Insight Timer. And there's a free version. You can go there and access. I think it is the world's largest platform for stress, anxiety, meditation, all that.
And that's called Insight.
Insight Timer. Yes.
Insight
Timer. So even if you don't like my style, you will find somebody on there who could be really helpful.
Brilliant. I love that. Okay. So Cathy, we are coming to the close of our time together, but, just to wrap us up, I'd like you to think about, what you would like to share with the amazing individuals that are listening to the show today. What would be one permission slip about whether it's rest, worthiness, success? What would be the one thing you would want to share with them?
It's so hard to boil it down to
I
one.
know.
It really is. But I think recognizing that you are worthy because you are alive, you do not need to prove your worth. You are a human being of value. You're precious. The divine lives in you, the divine light that's in every other human being and every other living thing. Like, it's present in you. And this unshakable calm, that is in you also. And just know that, like, showing yourself self-compassion and self-care allows you to show up in the world as the best version of yourself, as more often than if you are beating yourself up, very critical, and you're just not taking care of yourself first. Like, really radically prioritize your well-being.
Great way to set the new year. Radically prioritize. I love it. I love it. Cathy, this has been great conversation. Thank you for coming on and sharing with us. You mentioned you have some resources. We're going to put those in the show notes. So, everybody who's listening, you'll have access to that. And if people had other questions, Cathy, how would they find you?
My email is probably the best. You can check out my website, which is findblissyoga.com. And then my email is Cathy with a C, C-A-T-H-Y, at findblissyoga.com.
Nice. Okay. So if anybody listening, if you have additional questions for Cathy, which I'm sure you will, do reach out, ask those questions. And if you have someone that's in your life that needs to be prioritizing self-care, share this episode with them. Make sure you leave us a review. Let us know what you thought of the show today. That's really important to us to help us continue to grow. So Cathy, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity, Vicki. It's been a really great conversation.
Well, I'm grateful to you. And, I want you to keep doing what you're doing because we need more of that calm. And I have caught myself, especially the last few months, being kind of on that hamster wheel again. And even though I know not to do it, I have been doing it. And so this has been personally a great conversation to remind me what I need to do to get, really intentional with my practice.
Yeah.
So
I think it's never a place we just finally arrive, and it's always going to take some effort. Yeah. Always going to take some effort.
It's constant. Yes. Well, thank you for that. And audience, I want to thank you for chiming in today. We know you have choices to what podcast you listen to, and we're grateful that you continue to listen to us. We're being broadcasted globally. And so we're grateful that you keep chiming in and sharing and letting us know how we're doing. And as a gift, as always, if you haven't gone on and taken our free leadership quiz yet, make sure you do that because that'll give you some really great insight as to how you're showing up. You can find that on the Women in Leadership Empowered website or WILempowered.com. So do check it out. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you found out about yourself. We'd love to hear. And we'll see you on the next Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Take care, everyone, and welcome to 2026. Thank you for joining us for WIL Talk, sponsored by Women in Leadership Empowered. To learn more about our programs, please visit www.wilempowered.com. We look forward to seeing you in our community.